Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ladies Who Lunch and Learn. And thank you all for being here today. We're really excited to see all of you. Happy April, happy spring. It's not snowing in Maine, so that is glorious. I'm Felicity Homestead. I am the CEO of FQHC 340B Compliance, and I am one of your hosts.
I'm Lanika Ellis. I am the Director of External Audits here at FQHC 340B Compliance.
And then also with us today, we have Rebecca Crutchley as our co-host, and we'll introduce her in more detail in just a few minutes. So we're going to jump in, as you all are used to, just getting to know who is in the room. And so having you answer, are you a federally qualified health center or lookalike, other grantee, hospital, or in the 340B friends and family? So getting lots of responses there. No grantees in the room that aren't an FQHC yet. So we're going to have to work on that. Got lots of hospitals, lots of FQHCs, and the friends and family. Just reminding you all, introduce yourselves in the chat and say where you're from, what you're up to in the 340B program. And then our fun poll for the day is, if you could revisit a time in American history, what would that time be? Would it be the Gold Rush era, Roaring 20s? And if you were at the last grantee conference, you came to our Roaring 20s party, which was super fun. The era of bell bottoms and Woodstock, so the 70s, or we couldn't leave this out, the glory days of contract pharmacies, so 2010 to 2020. So and we've got a few for that. Ladies, which would you choose?
I would definitely be in the Woodstock area.
Nice. Rebecca, what about you?
Ooh, I think I'd have to do Roaring 20s.
I think I would also choose that. And we did get to enjoy the glory days of contract pharmacy. We did live through that. So we are getting most votes for Woodstock and for the 70s. There are a few Gold Rush people. Way to go. Way to be like pioneers. So I love that. Awesome. All right. And then introducing Rebecca Crutchley. So Rebecca and I have known each other for years. I had the opportunity to go out and visit her 340B program right when she was starting her role at her hospital that she's at now. And so Rebecca is a certified pharmacy technician. She's also certified as a 340B ACE. So well done, Rebecca. She has 27 years of pharmacy experience. And most recently, her role is a 340B coordinator at the Cabell Huntington Hospital, which is a disproportionate share hospital in West Virginia. So Rebecca, we'll let you take it over from there. I know you have a fun poll question for us as well, because we always like to have our hosts be very involved, not just in the education, but also in the fun.
Yes. So my poll question for the day is, what would be the most unexpected gift to receive on Mother's Day? The gift of nothing, the latest find for your mother's book club, toiletries, or a candle?
So I thought these were all fantastic. I feel like I would appreciate the gift of nothing if it was a day off from doing things. But what about you, Lanika? What are your thoughts?
The most unexpected gift for me would probably be nothing. I will definitely receive Mom's last nerve. Oh, look, it's on fire.
Yeah. My boys, they're a little smart Alex, so they would definitely give me the gift of nothing. So
we have one of our people on our team actually gave the book that you got in there to her mother-in-law, so who is a fan of giraffes and not the worst mother in the world.
So. The gift of nothing won that time.
Mm-hmm. Somebody who's very clever and is doing very well off of that.
You can purchase this on a particular site. So
It is a real opportunity.
Yes, this gift actually exists.
Oh man.
So today we are talking about unpleasant surprises on the Medicare Cost Report, how to avoid them, how to find them, and how to deal with them. And I will be transparent here and say that I found one of these lovely unpleasant surprises this year, and it was not fun. So this is how this particular subject came to pass. So we're just going to start going with avoiding them, identifying them, and managing them. So I'm from Cabell Huntington Hospital. It's a teaching hospital for Marshall University Schools of Medicine, Pharmacy, and Nursing. We have about 303-ish beds, a little over 3,300 employees. We have a children's hospital and a comprehensive cancer center, and we've been a 340B covered disproportionate share entity since 2005. Just a little background on our hospital. So to start, avoiding surprises. Don't be me. Educate, educate, and educate. The best way to avoid these surprises is to make sure everybody knows. Include the 340B team. Keep dialogues open with all your applicable departments, billing, revenue cycle, reimbursement, pharmacy. People don't understand that 340B really touches all areas of the hospital. Areas that they don't think it's going to touch, it does. So the more people you can educate about 340B, the better. Your oversight committee. If you involve these departments in your oversight committee, have those oversight committee meetings at least on a quarterly basis. Involve those departments. Make sure that they know about anything involving 340B, any changes that are happening. The least likely there are going to be surprises. Make sure you're reviewing your Medicare cost report prior to submission. This is key. This is something that is a struggle to happen. I know with us, our director of reimbursement is the one that submits that. We have a meeting annually on his calendar reminding him to send it to us, and it still doesn't happen. This year in particular, he sent it to us, said, okay, I'm not sending it over to our CFO until this date next week to review, to be submitted. And then he said, oh, surprise, it's already been submitted. And we were like, what? And I had sent him a long list of items that I was like, can you clarify this for me? Can you do this? And he hadn't sent me the whole report. He had only sent me specific pages of the report to review. So the other thing is make sure they send you the whole report. And then last but not least is that sometimes you have to accept that no matter how many processes you put in place to avoid these surprises, sometimes they're still going to happen. No matter what you do, they're going to happen. So you need to have good processes in place to identify them when they do happen. So next we come to identifying those surprises. So Apexis has a great guide for understanding the Medicare cost report. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen here.
And while you're doing that, I'm just going to make a point to the FQHCs and the grantees in the room. When she's talking about these sorts of things, what you want to be thinking about is, because you're not going to be defining your organization by your cost report, but for the federally qualified health centers and lookalikes, you're going to be thinking about if somebody's making changes to your electronic handbook, that you want to be looped in and aware of those things. So it's the same concepts, but it's just a different piece of documentation that the hospitals are using. So just making sure our FQHCs stay on the page.
Yes. So if you've never seen this guide before, it's a great guide. It goes through, it tells you, it explains each worksheet. It goes line by line, explaining which columns you need to look at. And then it gives you screenshots and tells you where you'll find the information you need. It's a great guide. I highly recommend looking at this. And then also make sure that you go, just take a look at it annually, because they do update this guide. So highly recommend. It's a great guide. As much as I've done this, every recertification period, every time I've had to go in and register a child site, I still have these moments where I blank out and I'm like, okay, which line am I looking at? Which worksheet am I looking at? And I go back to this guide constantly. So it's really a great resource and tool to have in your toolbox. And I've included a link at the end of the slide deck so that you can get into that.
And Rebecca, before we move on, we had a question in the chat based on what Felicity talked about. Is there a document like this for the EHB that you found in the Apexis?
Yeah, and so I'll answer that. I don't believe that Apexis has one for the FQHCs, but Lanika, I know you know we have one that we use internally. And so what we can do is put it together for next month's Ladies Lunch and Learn, and so that it's in a format that would be usable for others that outside of ours, which is more internally formatted. So Alexandra will commit to you that next month we'll have a resource that would be similar to that for you.
And then Felicity, how do I get back to the slide?
I'll bring them right back up. There we go.
Okay. And then next is, we tend to focus just on our own entity types qualification requirements only when we're looking at the Medicare Cost Report. We've never been taught to look at things like geographic locations, which is something you find on worksheet S2, part 1, lines 26 and 27. This is something that got me this time. Looking at things that say, same worksheet, line 116, are you a rural referral center? I'm a disproportionate share hospital. Why would I look at that line? Well, surprise. There might be a reason to look at that line. You might want to look at those lines just in case you come across those unexpected little surprises. Look for inconsistencies or anything that's different from your previous cost reports. Needless to say, you might find something that you're not expecting to see. So for us, one of those big glaring differences that we saw on our cost report was there were 2 disproportionate shares. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I had never come across this before. As you can see, we had our normal-ish disproportionate share, 34.21, and then we had this 12%. Before geo reclass and after geo reclass. And I was like, what does this mean? So that was a big glaring difference that started my mind going, what's going on? Also on this worksheet, S2, line 26 and 27, standard geographic classification. Date of geographic reclassification, September 29th. And I'm like, what do you mean geographic reclassification? What's going on here? And then, worksheet L, we see this hospital urban and PPS rural. And I'm like, what is going on? What is this? What is this? I've never seen this. Blowing my mind. What has my wonderful friend in reimbursement done to me this year? So, needless to say, I'm kind of freaking out, going, what has happened? As I am sitting here January 1st trying to register my clinics instead of taking my day off and wishing I had. So we get to managing surprises. Question everything. Do not be afraid to ask questions. Do not ignore questionable items. When you see these surprises, don't ignore them. Please don't. If you see something, say something. They're not going to go away. HRSA is not going to ignore them either, so you shouldn't. If you have consultants, utilize them. But remember, HRSA is the ultimate authority. And to that point, do not be afraid to contact Apexis. They are there to help you. Contacting Apexis will not trigger an audit. That is a myth. I don't know where this myth got started. It seems to live in the C-suite. But I have contacted Apexis many a time, and it has never triggered an audit. They are there to help you. Many times, it will make your life easier. And there have been times where I've asked our consultant a question. I have thought that their response, which actually aligned with what I thought maybe would be what the answer would be, and then just to be safe, contacted Apexis and found out we were both wrong. So do not be afraid to contact Apexis, because HRSA, and they are the prime vendor for HRSA, is the ultimate authority, and we all live for compliance. So please do not be afraid to contact Apexis. So,
seeing lots of love for Apexis in the chat. Reiterating exactly what you said. Yes, it will not trigger an audit. Most of the time, what is escalated, if at all possible, is escalated in a blind fashion unless they need to intervene on your behalf and get HRSA to make an action. So
I just want to get it out there. Many times you will get blowback and pushback from your C-suite saying, no, we don't want to get an audit. You won't get audited. I promise you. So to that point, managing. Medicare has a really good guide on DSH hospitals that includes calculating DSH percentage. And I'm going to try to share my screen again. Okay. Maybe. There we go. Okay. It tells you how to calculate. What I found, and this is one of the first places I went to when I saw my two disproportionate shares pop up on my cost report, and I started questioning, and I saw the two geographic reclassifications, I went to this guide and found out there was the Medicare Modernization Act provision. It has, Medicare Modernization Act, and it has a provision that impacts Medicare disproportionate shares. So what happened is when we went from that urban to rural designation, because we were under 500 beds, we had a 12% disproportionate payment adjustment cap imposed on us. And this guide helped me figure that out. So if you happen to ever be in this situation where you're trying to figure out what is going on with my disproportionate share, this is a fabulous guide. And it is very easy to understand. I highly recommend. So again, I included a link if anybody is interested, but it is certainly something I would recommend keeping. It's probably not something you're going to need very frequently, but when you do need it, it is great to have. Okay. And if you wouldn't mind, there we go. So back to my question, everything. My next step after saying, okay, what is this geographic reclassification and where did this secondary disproportionate share come from, was, does that mean we classify as a rural referral center now? So I went through my Medicare cost report to line 116, and is this facility classified as a referral center? And it says no. Well, now I'm really confused and going, what is going on? To my next point, if you have consultants, utilize them. So we spoke with our hospital's Medicare and 340B consultants. Now, after many, many, many emails and phone calls, and some mansplaining from our Medicare consultants on, well, if you're rural referral center and DISH, you can just pick one. Well, thank you very much. I know that, but I'm trying to figure out what is going on, and are we a rural referral center at this particular point in time? Found out there are some particular quirks to Medicare and this geographic reclassification. So the first thing to understand with our cost report is our filing period was October 1st of 22 to September 30th of 23. Now, the election of this rural geographical designation was effective on the day that the CMS regional office received our letter electing to go from urban to rural. That letter was received on September 29th of 2023, one day before our filing period ended. So in anticipation of them approving that, we submitted a separate letter requesting granting of RRC status. That status can only be submitted during the last quarter of our cost reporting period, which ended on September 30th of 2023. So while the regulations require that this request be submitted in the last quarter of the cost reporting period, it doesn't begin the RRC status until the beginning of the next cost reporting period. So the first date, effective date of the RRC status would be October 1st of 2023. So the rural geographical reclassification went into effect on September 29th of 2023, but rural referral center status didn't go into effect until October 1st of 2023. And boy, did it take some time for someone to be able to give me that explanation. Whew. So,
which is why Rebecca's here telling you in case this happens to you.
yes, fun times. The whole reason our hospital did this was because as a rural referral center, they could get more money for our residents. There was a lot of financial decisions behind that, but none of our 340B people were involved in any of those decisions, including our chief pharmacy officer. So, needless to say, oops.
Yeah. Some of the comments from the chat are emotional roller coaster. This is insane.
Mm-hmm.
We did get one question about how you were notified by CMS about the change requirements and due dates, but I'm guessing you may not have been the one receiving that information, so may not be able to comment on that, except for that I've dropped the link for that CMS document that you had shared. I dropped that in the chat.
Yeah, so I was not. I got this information from our Medicare consultants who worked with our director of reimbursement. And they gave me all of those dates so I could understand how it worked with the geographical reclassification and the rural referral center reclassification. So I could understand why on our Medicare cost report it said we weren't a referral center, but it said we were reclassified to rural, and how those dates were working there. I'm like, I need somebody to explain this to me. Stop explaining to me that I can choose rural referral center or DISH. I already know that. I need you to explain to me the timing here and why it says we were reclassified to rural, but it says we're not a referral center. That's my question. That's the question I need you to answer. And instead, they kept telling me, well, you can just pick one or the other. I'm like, yes, I know that.
Thank you.
That I know, but that's not the question I'm asking. So it was quite the merry-go-round, to say the least. But this just goes back to the don't be afraid to ask questions, because I had to be pretty much like a dog with a bone, where I just did not stop asking that question until I could get the answer that I needed. Same with while I was trying to register my child sites, what DISH percentage do I need to use? I've got two of them. Do I use this one or do I use this one? I need to be compliant with which one I'm using. So, my gut was use the 12% because, it says I'm capped. The consultants also said use the 12%. But I'm like, I don't know for sure. Let me verify with Apexis. And that leads me to the don't be afraid to contact Apexis. Because when I contacted Apexis, the first person I talked to actually said, well, there can't be two DISH percentages on your cost report. And I'm like, well, there are. And she's like, well, let me prioritize this up. So I actually ended up talking to Apexis's director of compliance. And they're like, yes, we have seen this before, and we have talked to HRSA about this previously. Actually, you do want to use your 34.21% dish percentage because you are staying as a disproportionate share hospital.
Not using the RR.
Yes, not using the geographical reclassification capped percentage. And she told me, go ahead and when you register, put a note saying you spoke to us and this is what we told you to do. So that is what we did, and we had zero problems. They did not question it. They didn't send it back to us. It went through absolutely smoothly. So do not be afraid to contact Apexis. It will save you trouble in the end. So.
And I think that's a great point too, right? Like there's going to be lots of times where the people at the call center are the first line at Apexis, and then if they are not sure, they will escalate to somebody who either have the answer or is going to work with HRSA to get the answer. And so very important. We got a couple things that came up in the chat too. Suzanne wants to know, how did you even know to look at those lines in the first place? And then somebody asked, Sarah asked if your finance team learned their lesson.
That is actually at the end of my.
All right, we won't steal that thunder, but what is that? Just by chance that you happened to notice those things as you were going through, or?
Yes. So when I saw my double dish percentage when I was trying to register, because mind you, when he sent me the Medicare cost report to look at before he submitted it, there were not 2 dish percentages on there. So I'm just going to throw that out there because I sure as heck would have seen those when I was reviewing it before he submitted them. So as soon as I saw those, I started going through that Medicare cost report with a fine-tooth comb. I looked at everything. And then we also have a 340B coordinator at our sister hospital. And she was looking at hers with a fine-tooth comb because she had seen the same thing. So between the two of us, we were looking and we had found some inconsistencies and some issues. So Kathy, I'm going to call Mary's, had found some and I had found some, and we were coordinating back and forth and going, what is going on? So between the two of us looking through the Medicare cost report, we were like, what is up with this? So we ended up looking through that whole report and saying, what is going on? But once we found that first inconsistency, we read through the whole report. But yeah, we basically line by lined it. Okay, so in summary, I will never do anything without checking with you first. So Suzanne, that is what Mike Cartwright, my director of reimbursement, said. And bless his heart, he went to register some stuff in Pecos and sent me an email and said, can you look over all of this and make sure that it's right? Because I don't want to do anything again without checking with you guys first. So I think he's probably learned his lesson. Yeah. But we will see when next year's cost report rolls around if he will give us the time we need to review it. So I think this kind of was the big blazing that they needed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is a fantastic quote. What we see on the health center side is they add new sites, but they don't tell anybody, or worse, they take sites out of scope. They don't tell anybody, and so for the health centers, they have a document that's called the electronic handbook that gives them what is included and what's not included in their grant, which defines what can be in their 340B program. So it's a very similar conversation that has to be a running back and forth between the two.
And they keep it close to them. They don't like to share it for whatever reason. So a lot of times that's what the FQHCs run into is, I don't know what you're wanting to see, and the C-suite has it, but they hadn't shared it with whoever's doing their 340B program.
We appreciate, I think this is your last slide, right, Rebecca?
I think so.
We appreciate you sharing this experience with us. You've got resources that are in there. The slide deck has been loaded, and Rebecca has kindly shared her information. One quick question that came up that I'll just jump into, and then pass it over to Lanika to start hot topics is, you can qualify as different statuses in the 340B program. So Rebecca has the RRC designation on her hospital, but because her DISH percentage is high enough, it exceeds that 11.75%, she can choose which direction she goes. And so pros and cons to consider for each of the different types. The DISH status has the GPO prohibition, but the RRC would have the orphan drug exclusion. And so hospitals will tend to say, okay, based on the patient population I'm treating, which one makes the most sense for us? And given that Rebecca was already a DISH, there is also that burden to change. So they decided, since they are still above the DISH threshold, staying there. Lanika, if you will take it away in hot topics. And Rebecca, you're welcome to stay and contribute to the discussion.
Rebecca, I learned a lot, so definitely thank you for that. It was traumatizing, but a great lesson learned.
It was. I think we were all a little traumatized after that.
Well, for hot topics, we have now HRSA has named the new OPA director, Chantel Britton, who previously served as the interim director of OPA after Lieutenant Edwin vacated his position in December. Previously, she worked as a senior advisor for the director of OPA for about 8 years under Rear Admiral Pedley, and she also served at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, as well as White House Office for National AIDS and Policy. So updates on the Sustain 340B Act. We've seen that another round of requests for information went out, and with the due date of April 1st from Senator Thune. Senator Thune shared that the health care legislation package is expected by the end of the year, could include 340B overhaul. I think everybody's finger is crossed, but we don't know. Stakeholders responded regarding the patient definition. It varied greatly, as we all expected. And then the anticipated challenges regarding the significant costs involved. But we may see that the proposed user fee alleviates that. We also seen the 340B Patients Act of 2024 coming from proposed by Congressman Matsui. And the key points for this bill is for manufacturers that are in a PPA, they must offer the ceiling price to covered entities regardless of the manner or location in which the drug is dispensed. Also, the manufacturer may not place conditions on the ability of the covered entities to purchase the outpatient's drug by putting limits on how the drug is delivered or the methods of purchase. Also, they'll propose conditions for the manufacturers after they receive approval from the secretary. If those conditions do not single out covered entities from other customers or disproportionately impacted covered entities. More key points from that proposed bill is the sanction for manufacturers if they knowingly and intently limit the access of covered drugs to covered entities. It shall not exceed $2 million a day, which it was very interesting to see that they're imposing it for it to be each day until there's no longer a violation. It will be determined by the secretary the nature of the violation. So within 24 days of the enactment of the bill, the secretary shall permit covered entities to assert claims for these violations. Felicity, you want to add anything to those?
Yeah, I think that both bills are really exciting to see, and both are proposed. I think as far as the conversation that we're hearing around them, because Matsui's bill, one, it was introduced by just one side of the House. It has a little bit less of an expectation to move forward because it's not bipartisan, but it's phenomenal to see Congresswoman Doris Matsui, really coming out and saying all of these things. She's been such a strong advocate for the 340B program. It's a really nice, concise bill that just really focuses on reopening the contract pharmacy restrictions that are there. The one that we would hope is or would be more expected to move forward is the bipartisan bill in the Senate from the Gang of Six. However, because we are in an election year, even though Senator John Thune has said that the plan would be to have a package by the end of the year, elections introduce all sorts of changes, and we don't know what the structure of any of the different portions of government are going to look like at that point. And so it will be interesting to see. We also know Senator Cassidy's been doing his different outreaches to covered entities and 340B stakeholders to get information. There's the suggestion of the House that if there's a change in the structure, that Senator Cassidy could potentially be a very important member who, right now he's not a decision maker in his committee, but could potentially move to that ranking member who makes decisions. So as we see power and structure shift around the election, it may or may not impact whether the sustain bill moves forward or the Matsui bill moves forward. But it has been nice to see that the two bills that have been proposed most recently are not the shredding of the 340B legislation that I think we all were concerned about if it got opened up. And so Sustain Act, as we talked about before, nice that we've been able to engage in the dialogue. A lot of stakeholders, both from the manufacturer side as well as the covered entity sides, weighed in on that. And so they're diligently reviewing all of those submissions that they've received, and that will go into the next iteration that we see come back. So talking about manufacturer restrictions, there have been lots of developments that we've seen since we talked about this last. Genentech told us that they were going to restrict, and then they announced their restrictions. Theirs currently is for hospitals only. I've spent the month learning how to pronounce Sumitomo, yay. And so their restriction does apply to all covered entities. They do also have a 40-mile radius involved in their contract pharmacy restriction, and do have some opportunities for wholly owned pharmacy exemptions, but that would be in lieu of designating your contract pharmacy. Then there have been lots of manufacturers who have updated their policies. Most of them are just adding medications to the formulary that they've already restricted, and Bayer being the most significant in that they have changed quite a few things. So they've removed their wholly owned exemption. They've added a 40-mile limit to their contract pharmacy designations. And then they've also removed the ability to restore by submitting claims data. So lots of changes there. It just keeps continuing. Arkansas, I was thinking back today to one of our early sessions that we had, where I had the Arkansas, the little engine that could, and it was back when Arkansas was trying to get their bill introduced. They were proposing it and they were going through, and it's just amazing to see where that has gone from, just bringing it through the state legislature to where we are today, right? So 2021 was when they were enacting the bill, and that was just like 2 months after we started Ladies Lunch and Learn. So I remember like having the little slide with the train on it, and that was big news at that point. And now here we are. When it's been passed and we're coming forward. And so pharma, they've enacted their bill. Arkansas enacted their bill. Pharma has filed a lawsuit. And then what we have seen from there is that the first court that it went to, in the district court, ruled in the favor of Arkansas. and said that the state, just to go high level quick summary, the state has the authority to have oversight over the distribution of medication in their state. It falls under sort of more of the health human services, and it's not negating what is in the 340B program or any other federal program. So the 340B program does not talk about distribution of drugs at the pharmacy level. It talks about wholesalers, but not pharmacies. Then they appealed it to a third circuit court. And in that one, they got a 3-judge panel who gave them a ruling. Again, ruled with the covered entities and with the Arkansas Board of Insurance. And so there, Arkansas, again, their law was found to be appropriate. And pharma has now filed a petition to have a rehearing in front of all 11 judges. And I apologize, I said third circuit, but it's on the 8th circuit. So they've asked to have it reheard in front of all of the 11 judges instead of just the 3 who heard it originally. So as a side note, AstraZeneca is not a member of pharma, and they have also filed suit against Arkansas. So it continues to play out. On the positive, we'll see the 8th circuit can decide if they want to hear the case again or not. What they'll do is they'll consider the grounds of the request for the rehearing to see if those grounds are valid to bring the case back again. I am not a lawyer. None of this construes legal advice, but my reading of it, I didn't see significant arguments that were different from what were presented in the original 2 cases. And so I would be surprised if it gets taken up based on my understanding of the first 2 cases. It doesn't seem that they introduced something that was pivotal and different and not discussed previously. So we will see if they get a new hearing. The other question will be what happens with that AstraZeneca lawsuit that's filed. Speaking of Arkansas and states that are like Arkansas, so the second state to introduce the 340 protections was Louisiana, and at the contract pharmacy level. And so we have seen, I believe it is 19 now, and up to, there's a couple more who have suggested that we may see them coming, but we haven't gotten official documentation of them yet. Manufacturers who have lifted in some capacity their restrictions in Arkansas. So many have lifted them directly. Some have asked for it to be done with claims submission. So here's the list of who have made exceptions for Arkansas. Some have also made exceptions for Louisiana. This is from the 340B report. They do a great job of tracking what's going on in all of the states. So because Arkansas and Louisiana were the first 2 to introduce the bills, they are the ones where you see the restrictions have been removed. We have clients who are in West Virginia. They just got their bill approved. Whoop, whoop. And as did Mississippi. And the number one question that I've gotten from those states is, okay, now what, right? And so the explanation that I like to give is you make your attempt to obtain the medications, and typically what we're seeing is that is not being restored right away. Again, from this one that I just showed you, we don't see Mississippi or West Virginia. There does take time for those bills to actually come into effect. Usually they give 90 or 120 days before the bill, once it's signed into law, takes effect, right? But we don't see any of these manufacturers just adding new states to it automatically. We also don't see Louisiana running down the board either. So you make the attempts to obtain the drugs once your law is updated. When you receive those denials to receive those drugs at your contract pharmacies, then you go to the appropriate party that was designated in your law to file the complaints to. and you file those complaints that you are being denied access to pricing, and then the process begins, and then they will attempt to impose whatever sanctions are written in the law and attempt to hold the manufacturers accountable. And then we will go through the chain of events that Arkansas has gone through, right? Where we saw the litigation. When pharma loses in the litigation, that's when we see the manufacturers restoring the pricing. So it is a slow pathway, but it is an important pathway. And again, it is a successful pathway, but it is not, once you pass the bill, that your drugs are flowing immediately again. There's a few more hurdles to overcome from there. We have something to put on your radar if you are in, if you are doing advocacy work in any of the states. So, because there's always an opportunity for things to change at the last minute, Virginia is just one we're going to highlight. So there was a contract pharmacy protection bill that moved unanimously through the House and through the Senate. And it went to the governor to sign, and the governor introduced some of their own language to the bill, adding a year delay, adding a working group, and some reporting requirements that it may be that the working group is reporting out, maybe that it's covered entities reporting out. And so right now this has been sent back down from the governor to the legislature, and they need to decide what they're going to do with this. So just making sure that it's not over until it's fully signed and put into your law. So maintaining advocacy at all levels. And so just being really thoughtful of that. We do have some states that have reporting requirements. Maine and Minnesota were the first two, and we are starting to see other states like Washington now has it, and other states considering it. So if I'm going to jump back for a second, if you look at this map, right, I always think about contagion and spread. So it started in Arkansas, went to Louisiana, Mississippi is contiguous. My joke is somebody got on a plane and flew to West Virginia. But if you look at how bills that are being introduced and bills that are passing legislature, it's states that are touching it, states that are neighboring, they're talking, they're sharing what's going on, they're learning from each other, and it's spreading, right? Because again, it started with one state and it's coming out from there. We want to be very cautious about these reporting requirements. And so making sure that we don't see that type of contagion happening as well. So your advocacy efforts focusing on, you know, what are our current reporting requirements that we already have, whether you're a grantee or you're a hospital, we are already doing a lot of reporting, and what are our current accountability measures. And so making sure that your legislature is very aware of those, so that when somebody comes to talk to them about 340B reporting requirements, that they know that you're already doing this work, and that there are other agencies that you currently report to and that hold you accountable, and that is not necessary for your state to do.
Felicity, we have one question, and we may have to answer it offline if you don't know off the top of your head. What number of bill introduced in Florida for?
Yeah. So, Lynn, if you want to ping one of our team members, see if they might have that. If we don't have it today, we can email it out to you, Nikita, and follow up with you. But I don't have that off the top of my head. But we have a team member who is in Florida who may be able to get that really quickly for us. And then just talking about important things that are happening, again, model spread, right? California and New York are on either side of the country, but both took their Medicaid MCOs and rolled them over to being all fee-for-service style reimbursement for their pharmacy benefit. Now, New Jersey is also considering doing that. And so there have been bills that have been introduced at the Assembly in New Jersey and at the Senate level. And so they are looking to do the same thing. So moving to an actual acquisition cost plus a dispensing fee for New Jersey, following the New York model. There has already been quite a bit of advocacy happening with the hospitals and the federally qualified health centers. I'm sure the other grantees as well, but we're just not as tapped in with all of the other groups that are out there about this, about the impact that this will have for those groups. And so if you are in the state of New Jersey, encouraging you to get out and talk to your representatives and talk to them about how important this bill is to you and how it will impact your patients and your ability to care for them. So just putting that on your radar. So one of the pieces that was highlighted in Rebecca's presentation, right, is sometimes you have opportunities to switch from one covered entity type to another. And so this goes for if you were going we have FQHCs, lookalikes to an FQHC, or it could even be if you were, say, in Rebecca's situation and they decided they needed to move from the DISH hospital to the rural referral center, right? What happens if you're changing an entity type and you want to be careful that you're not losing your eligibility, and what is the best way to navigate that so that you're not having times where your patients aren't getting access to medications. And so as Rebecca said, right, like, do not be afraid of contacting Apexis. And so in this specific instance, we're talking about the FQHCs, lookalikes to FQHCs. So it's much more common for hospital statuses to change. But if you do have a status change of your covered entity, whether you're a grantee changing your grant type or your hospital changing your hospital type, really great to engage Apexis in that conversation so that you can work with the Office of Pharmacy Affairs to make sure that that transition is as smooth as possible. And if there's the potential for it, avoid any downtime in your 340B program so your patients aren't losing access to those important medications. And I'm checking our time. We have 3 minutes left. So everything else that we have in the deck is going to roll into next month's Hot Topics. You'll see a preview as I quickly click through. So we're going to talk a lot about administrative dispute resolution process. It's the highlight is they've made it better for covered entities in particular to level the playing field when we put in our disputes against manufacturers. We'll talk a lot in detail about that. It's really fantastic what they have done. We are going to be at the Grantee Conference in Phoenix. Really looking forward to seeing you all there. Lanika and I and our team are going to be hosting the welcome reception. So curious if you're going to be there. We've got a couple people saying yes. Most people are saying no at this point, but if you are there, stop us, say hello. I believe we're going to be raffling off some of the ladies' lunch and learn little gift packs that you might have seen Madeline post one on LinkedIn. So we're really excited to see you all. And then oh yes, other important update. Next month, because of the conference, we are going to be 1 week off. So we're going to be running Ladies Lunch and Learn on May 30th because we'll be doing travel from the conference back. So we're bumping it out by 1 week for next month. And if you're not able to attend, you do get the recordings as well. And next month is going to be all just hot topics updates. So we'll get deep dive into different things. If there are any new developments that you haven't that we haven't covered that you would like us to cover, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And so we can talk about them, but really appreciate you all being here. Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your arduous journey and important lessons that you learned with us.
Thank you for having me. To Sarah, I started my registration very early, so I was able to be pretty aggressive with my questions. So it took me up to pretty close to the end of the registration period. So it took me about a week and a half of asking questions and being aggressive to get answers to my questions. So once I got them, I registered ASAP. So, but yeah,
Awesome.
it took me some time.
All right, and if you all need anything, you know how to reach us. And we appreciate you all being here, and we will either see you in Arizona or we will see you on the next Ladies Lunch and Learn. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.